the customer's going to shop where they choose to shop, and it's your job to go to market with something that is compelling and different to have them choose you.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook presented by Bluecore and Web Future Studio. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 119, and my guest is Kim Miller. Kim is currently the president of Saks Off Fifth and has a wide-ranging career in retail, from her time at Macy's to Hewlett-Packard, her time at a private equity-owned retailer, to Charlotte Russe, and now at Saks Off Fifth. She has been a trailblazer in the digital space, and she offers up some simple but effective ways to help you manage your business. Enjoy the show. Before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Branstetter of the Wow Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by Kim Miller. Kim is president of Saks Off Fifth, which is part of Saks Global's portfolio of luxury brands and real estate assets. As president, Kim is driving the strategy for Saks Global's luxury off-price fashion destinations, including Saks Off Fifth and Last Call. Prior to being appointed president, she led Saks Off Fifth's marketing strategy, serving in positions including chief marketing and analytics officer and chief growth officer. Previously, she held roles as chief executive officer of the boutique brands and chief marketing officer of Rakuten. With more than 20 years of experience in fashion, retail, and e-commerce, she has extensive cross-channel expertise, including a history of driving growth strategies and delivering results. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for making the time. I know in your role, you are quite busy, and it's frankly very nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you as well. It's been a while.
It has, and we'll talk about one of the roles that you had, which is where we met when you were at Charlotte Russe. So let's jump right in. I kind of run these shows very similarly from show to show. Always like to get the guest's first story. What might have happened in your career, in your early career, upbringing, family life, that might have suggested you'd have the career that you did?
It's a great question, and it's one that I hadn't thought of because I would normally have just kind of dismissed it and said nothing could possibly have prepared me for this, but that's actually not true. My grandfather owned a shoe repair and handbag store in Union, New Jersey. And one might say that's where the bug started. When I was single digits. I was probably younger than 10. I would go to work with him and learned obviously a lot about retail and selling. But I think my grandfather also had a profound impact on me in how to treat people you work with. That group of people worked with him for 30 plus years, and they were basically our family. So that my origin story is my grandfather's shoe repair store in Union, New Jersey.
It's funny, I've asked this question over 100 times, and it's always so interesting to me that and I talk to a lot of retailers. It's so interesting how there's been, some family experience in retail, whether it be a mom and pop or what have you. So always interested to hear, what folks have to say. We're recording this show towards the end of March in 2025. Leaving out where you are today, and we'll talk about that. What's your sense of where the economy is right now? It seemingly has changed quite a bit over the last, 6 months. What are you seeing and feeling?
It's actually interesting you asked that. We just spent part of our day today over at Google, and we're talking about this very topic. And, the unemployment rate is very low, and consumer sentiment is very low. So it is this very strange phenomenon where people are actually feeling okay in terms of being employed, but are very concerned about their spending. And we are seeing some elements of our customer cohorts pulling back, and we're seeing some who aren't as affected. But I think we feel good across the portfolio of brands that we operate that our core consumers are still with us. The Saks luxury brands, the consumer is still spending there. And then, we're very blessed to be in the value business. Feel pretty good about our prospects going forward, but I know people are nervous. It's clear just, walking around in the stores.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Speaking of stores, one of the most formidable experiences that seemingly you had was an extended period with Macy's fairly early in your career. And it was during a time, it seems, when, the web was kind of not a thing, and then the web became a thing. What was your role there in getting the web to be prominent for Macy's?
It was quite a journey. The 12 years I was there, things seem to have changed every 6 months. And throughout my career, that's the kind of momentum I enjoy the most. One of the things to remember is, in 1994, we didn't even know if customers wanted to buy online. There were five of us. We were cross-functional. We had somebody in finance, we had someone in technology, and then there were two of us who were running what at the time was special services within Macy's. And so we were doing bridal registry and personal shopping, convention services, some of the niche yet highly profitable businesses within the company. And when we decided to launch Macy's.com, we could not afford to take the pictures. We could not really afford to do anything. So we decided we would launch with bridal because we knew that we had a very strong 1-800 business, and the customer didn't need to see product to buy off of a registry. They basically called in and say, I want to spend $100. What on the registry is still available for me to buy? So little known fact is that the bridal registry business was where we started, and it actually funded the growth for the company for the first 5 years.
Interesting. I certainly didn't know that. So, as you were in the midst there, I was in catalog companies in those days. And, one of the biggest challenges was catalog people, I say that with air quotes, felt that the internet, the web was going to cannibalize their business. How did you experience that from the store's side?
It was very intense. It was a very intense time. And I don't think a day went by early on in this adventure where I didn't get a call from a store manager, very upset that we were stealing his or her business. And so that is another very important and has a profound impact on my career. And I would say, being empathetic, listening, trying to figure out if there were solutions we could do. And this is before we had the technology to give stores credit for the sale and things like that. We had to navigate that, and it was very tricky. And I think the thing that I still come back to is the fact that I worked my way up through stores after my grandfather's store in Union. I worked at Macy's on the sales floor. I worked at Urban Outfitters, you name it. I worked my way through college in retail. And I think that experience helped me relate to the store managers and allowed me to be empathetic and try to keep everyone calm while we were trying to figure this out.
I don't want to jump through your entire career, but you lead a store organization and an online business today. Just quickly, so we don't forget all the other good stuff you've done. You just talked about what was going on in stores, the cannibalization, the store managers calling you. What's it like today, 20 years later?
We have a much better cross-functional relationship with our stores because we have figured out a way as an industry not to punish one channel over the other. And I think, we're more focused on the customer than we are where the transaction happens. And I think that is a fundamental shift that needed to happen. And I think it's, not only good for all of us as employees, but I think it's amazing for the customer.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because I do a lot of consulting and I've been in a lot of multi-channel brands. And every once in a while, depending upon the culture of the company, you do see that start to fester again. Brands losing sight of the fact that, in theory, they should be focused on the customer. Let the customer shop wherever they want, let them return it wherever they want within reason, but really focus on that and not the channel. So, great call out. How do you bring customers along into a new technology or new capability? Folks were used to Macy's, they were walking into a physical store. Now they had the ability to do it online. How did you bring them along to experience?
First of all, I think on the bridal registry side, we were shocked at how much more prepared they were for that than we were. I mean, truly the customer in that regard was already there because they just wanted it to be convenient. I think that meeting the customer where they are sounds a little bit cliche, but I do think it holds true. Offering and testing your way into things has continues to be, I think, the best way to go, whether it's with an app or a new feature. Offering it to a customer, having it be some kind of benefit to the customer, I think is the most important vetting criteria when you launch something new. I think sometimes we like shiny objects and the customer is not really there. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves and take it for what it is.
Shiny object syndrome. We talk about that
Mhm.
often on the show here. A long tenure at Macy's, and then you move on to a different vertical, Hewlett Packard. How do you make that transition from Macy's to Hewlett Packard?
It was a very interesting choice, and this narrative will continue, I think, as we kind of go through some of the experiences that I've had. But I went there for a very specific reason, for two very specific reasons. One was by the time I walked in the door, that business was already at $1 billion. And I wanted, Macy's was about half of that. And I really wanted to walk into something where it was already quite large to see how my skill sets fared with growing something even further. The other reason why I joined is because of its very extensive catalog business, which you know very well. And we didn't have a catalog at Macy's, and I really wanted the catalog experience, which is why I went there. So I built out their CRM. We expanded the catalog part of their business. It was, I would say, from a product perspective, not my favorite ink and toner, but it was definitely a very different experience and one that I valued a lot because I wouldn't have had the CRM experience I do today without it.
As you're talking about ink and toner, my mind went directly to Amazon and how I shop today. And maybe that's a good question, for you, for somebody that's been in retail for as long as you have. How have you seen Amazon, impact businesses that you've been in? One plus one equals three. Has it cannibalized your business? Do you not have enough information to truly know in some cases?
I would say it definitely has. I think it has more cannibalization on the apparel side than we want to give it credit for, to be perfectly honest. But there are so many people kind of playing in that inexpensive, fast fashion apparel space that, it doesn't affect us today, but I think it impacted Charlotte Russe quite a bit over time. I would say from a commodity perspective, you really can't beat Amazon. I would say they're still not as strong on the, higher end apparel side and some of the softer goods. If you have something specific and you want to start searching for it there, I think that's great. I feel like there are experiences that retailers offer that Amazon can't touch, and we should all be doubling down on those.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good advice. So you had enough of ink and toner, and then you go to a skincare brand, Philosophy. And the interesting aspect there, I guess, is that it was private equity owned. Your decision to make that change was?
I think it was to get back kind of into a product I was very passionate about. And it was a founder-led business that had just been purchased by private equity. And I was very interested in understanding kind of how private equity worked and what does it mean to be a founder-led business and all of those amazing things, as well as having a very strong brand behind it. And so there, I was responsible for all the direct to consumer. But the twist on it was I was also responsible for our retail partners direct to consumer. And that model actually helped formulate some of the things I did later in my career, which is, instead of having it be a contentious brand versus retailer conversation, how do you set up your organizational structure so that it's a win-win for both? And we were able, to achieve that at Philosophy, in ways that kept Sephora happy and QVC happy while we were continuing to grow our own business.
It's a challenge that I hear from, clients and brands all the time. They're predominantly wholesaler brands, and they want to be direct to consumer. They don't necessarily understand how to get the customer to come to their site. They don't want to alienate all the stores that are helping them, expose their brand. Any rules of the road for, businesses that are wholesale driven that, want to be direct to consumer?
I think we have to make the experiences different. There has to be a different reason for being for each of the different channels you operate in. And I think we forget that sometimes. I'll use an example. At Philosophy, we had shower gels, and we enabled customers to customize the labels on the shower gels when they were doing their gift giving and things like this that, Sephora wasn't able to do, Ulta wasn't able to do. And the customer's going to shop where they choose to shop. And it's your job to go to market with something that is compelling and different to have them choose you.
Yeah, that's, again, back to my experiences at Madden, that was exactly the case there. And at Madden, you were talking about give them a reason for being in different channels. One of the things that I was always enamored about in that business is up and down the food chain, we had product to support each of the different levels of retail, and they still today do a great job that way. So speaking of Madden and where we ultimately met, you were at Charlotte Russe for a period. Interesting business, specialty retailer. You had the department store experience. How's that different?
I think having the ability to create and design your own product and, be able to control your distribution was a very big blessing at the time. We enjoyed the fact that we were not on Amazon. We did not have to be on Amazon, and that was about the time they were really kind of aggressively trying to get into the apparel business. Being able to have a website and an app that met the customer where they were, allowed them to look online, go pick it up in the store. We were kind of early in that regard. Be able to look at inventory on your app across stores. If they didn't have something you wanted in one store, you could go pick it up in the other store. So it was a really nice way, again, privately held, a really nice way to be able to extend that experience out for the customer and meet her where she was at any given time.
The challenges that some businesses have, I'm sure you've experienced along your career, is wanting to do more than the resources you have will allow you to. How do you manage prioritization of projects and of things that really are going to matter and move your business?
We don't have unlimited resources. I've never been in a business that has. So you're really needing to focus, especially when you're a privately held company with shareholders who are looking to, for short-term maximum value. You have to make sort of ruthless decisions around what you're going to spend your money on and what's going to give you a payback. The one caveat to that is that you always have to test and learn. So while you're being, on one hand, you're being very pragmatic and very careful with how you spend your money, there's always this engine underneath that is, reading and reacting, testing, learning, so that you kind of catch the next opportunity. So it's a balance of both things, I think.
Yeah, I've worked with companies, they want to be fast, they want to be scrappy, they want to test and learn. And then there's this trade-off between, we've had this debate internally a bunch. You could do something that's 50 or 60% as good as it might be when if you had more time. But, do you try to become first in market? Do you try and learn? Can you learn if you're only 50% to what you think it ultimately should be? Do you have a philosophy around that?
I think it depends on what you're testing. I think it depends on, let's call it, if you decide to go live with something, what's the ultimate cost of ownership? And I think factoring that in when you make the decision is also really important, because a lot of times we test things and we think they're going to be great, and it's a piece of software, and of course it never, I shouldn't say never, often does not perform out in the wild the same way it does when you're in your A/B testing mode on your website. So, taking that into consideration, knowing that there's going to be, let's call it less positive results, are you willing to take that risk? And how much is it going to cost you over time to manage it once it's live? And once you factor all those pieces in, is it still worth it?
Leading retail brands are seeing 3-year customer retention rates that average 59%, while the industry average is only 22%. What makes the difference? It's a philosophy and framework called customer movement. Customer movement centers your strategy on customers rather than channels. It's the practice of understanding customer value and moving shoppers through the life cycle more often and more efficiently. From unknown visitors to known shoppers, from non buyers to new buyers, from one time buyers to repeat, and re engaging those who threaten to slip through the cracks. Bluecore is the retail marketing technology behind customer movement, working with more than 400 leading retailers and D2C brands such as Gap, Neiman Marcus, Carhartt, and Tapestry. Learn more about customer movement and how to create a more active, profitable customer base at bluecore.com. You had a period of what I like to call on the show on the dark side, moving from the brand retailer side to the provider side. Tell us about that experience and what precipitated the change.
Are we talking about consulting or Rakuten?
Ah, interesting. Funny that you should say that.
I thought you were
Yes.
going to say the dark side was consulting, Mark. I'm
Yes. It's
kidding.
funny. No, it's funny that you say that because before I was a consultant, that's exactly how I would have described the dark side consulting. No, I was actually asking about Rakuten and not specifically to Rakuten, but just not being on the brand side.
It was a big decision for me to do that. And it was also a great decision for me to do that. And I met some of the folks that worked there at the time. It was Ebates, and was truly amazed at just the customer profile of who's using Rakuten for their cash back was a pretty astonishing wake-up call for me, to be honest. And it really did help me understand who the customers were at Rakuten that were shopping in my retail, my retail websites. So I got a pretty big wake-up call on that. The other reason why I joined is because I wanted to learn an aspect of the business that I didn't have a lot of exposure to, and that was direct response TV. Their go-to-market strategy was very, in addition to obviously having retailers as clients, the main thrust of Rakuten and other affiliates is how fast can they grow with quality, their membership. And so my job was to go out and make sure that we were acquiring new customers for Rakuten and therefore our retailers, and also keeping those members engaged. We had very successful direct TV campaigns that were in flight at any given time. And then about halfway through my tenure there, Rakuten in Japan asked us to rebrand to Rakuten from Ebates. And so we went through an entire rebranding, and that was, again, a huge opportunity for me in my career, and one that was, very difficult to do, but also a lot of fun and turned out to be very successful.
Do you take a step back and give yourself some opportunity to look back at a career and see how it's, meandered, all but very prescriptive, it seems? I mean, do you feel good about that? Because you should feel good about that.
I do feel good. I always say I've had one of the most bizarre career paths, I think, of any retailer, but I enjoy learning new things, and I enjoy, if there's a piece of information out there or a program that I'm interested in, I'll go seek it out. All the other factors are, I always like, are the people nice? Can I learn something? And can I add value? Like those are the three things I look for. And if all those things hold true, then it's generally a great fit for me.
And the current role, President Saxoff Fifth, for those that may not know, can you talk a little bit about the combinations and the changes that Saxoff Fifth have had over the last few months and what the organization looks like today?
So we closed in December on our acquisition of the Neiman Marcus Group, and that formed Saks Global. And as part of that, HBC in Canada was its own company. And now we are Neiman's, Bergdorf, Saks, Saks Off Fifth, and Last Call. And those businesses are each run by different presidents. So I'm the president of Saks Off Fifth and Last Call. We have Tracy Margulies, who's the head of Bergdorf Goodman, and then Emily Essner is the chief commercial officer for Saks. So there's three of us, and we report into Mark Metrick, who's the CEO of Saks Global.
That's nice. And also, you'll keep me honest, Amazon has some investment in the business. Is that correct?
Yes, Amazon, Salesforce, it's a slightly different mix of investors at Saks Global now, but the core, the original core group is the same.
And we talked a little bit at the beginning about the economy, and you're in the off-price, running the off-price channels, the two brands. I think you made a comment about that. You're pleased to be where you are. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Maybe something around who the customer is, within your businesses.
Our customer, it's 70% women, higher than you would expect household income. And our customer is looking for, it's truly looking for the treasure hunt. They're looking to go into our stores or online and find that wow piece at a wow price. And, we get super excited to be able to deliver it to her. And then 30% of our customers are men, and it's the same holds true there. They look for the Versaces, they look for the Valentinos, they look for the Burberrys, and that brand assortment is our differentiator from our competition. And we're very proud of that.
Yeah, you have a Saks Off Fifth store, I believe, in Boca Raton, Florida, that I am fairly often at as the driver of the car. But then I walk around the store because I'm a retailer also and like to see what you have. As you think about the treasure hunt, does that make it more difficult for customers to shop online, do you think, because of the treasure hunt, or is it equally as fun in your mind for them online?
It is equally as fun online. It's just different. I grew up going into the Saks Off Fifth store, in north of Philadelphia. So I love the good treasure hunt as well. But, I will say this. Last week, we had a brand that shall remain nameless. We had four handbags from this brand, and it was a relative, let's say we had 10 to 15 SKUs for each of the handbags. And we launched them at 9 a.m. and by noon they were all gone. And we see comments on our social channels about, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I got, this handbag at this price and, oh my gosh, I missed it. So there's a chatter around what we offer and how we offer it that gets people very, 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 very excited. When people are commenting on the great deals they got on Reddit that you're doing a good job.
You and I are marketers, at heart. Marketing gets more expensive, it seems, like most other things. What are you seeing in the cost of driving traffic, whether it be through Meta or Google or other channels these days?
Yeah, I think it continues to go up. It continues to be a challenge. I think the customer journey at this point is so complicated based on behaviors and based on, are you scrolling? Are you searching? Are you really intent? What is your intent to purchase at any given time is a fascinating data exercise. I think as retailers, we can get really caught up in that. And, you and I both know as storytellers that you have to get back to the story. And I think creative has such a huge role to play in breaking through a lot of the noise that we see on the customer journey so that, if you present engaging, creative out into the market that is on brand and targeted to the right customer, you should be able to get more efficient over time, but it does take a lot of creative to do that.
Loyalty. How does loyalty play into loyalty programs play into the world that you live in today?
Yeah, it's an important part of what we do. We have, a credit card program and we have a loyalty program. They're different in terms that, the loyalty program is tender neutral. We have higher end product. Loyalty and credit help a customer make the decision to buy a $500 handbag from us. Even though the handbag was originally maybe $2,500, both our loyalty program and our credit card give you certain benefits and certain incentives that will help you get over the hump and make that purchase. And so it is a very important part of what we do.
As you think about loyalty go forward, changes to the program, it seems like, some programs change and try to add more experiential kinds of things to their program rather than in some cases it being, strictly discount focused kinds of programs.
I think over time, there's always opportunity to tweak things and relook at it. Our loyalty program is, I want to say 2 years old. So it hasn't been around for an extended period of time. We're always looking at it. We're always looking to tweak it, to test new things. And so I wouldn't rule out trying something experiential. We'll have to see how the customer votes.
Got it. That's one of the things that, all too often, we forget. We have customers that will vote. And if all you have to do is ask them and then be able to bring the insights, together and make heads or tails out of it. You mentioned catalog and you liked the catalog. What do you do, if anything, direct mail wise?
We haven't done anything direct mail wise yet. So I don't think we've ever done it. The opportunity for us is to be able to do it. I think regionally, we'll probably start testing some things. We operate a lot like a fast fashion retailer, meaning we don't have depth. We're in and out of things very quickly. So we have to kind of weigh whether or not we're going to spend the money on the paper for a product that may or may not be in stock at any given time.
Tired of clicks that don't convert? You're crushing it online, but you're leaving money on the table. Path to Response bridges the gap between digital and direct mail, turning online engagement into high ROI campaigns. Stop guessing and start converting. Visit pathtoresponse.com and unlock your full customer acquisition potential. Path to Response, where clicks meet conversions delivered. Visit pathtoresponse.com and unlock your full customer acquisition potential today.
Well, we are down to the end of our show. Really good stuff, Kim. Thank you very much. We do a 2-minute drill, 7 questions, 1 word answer. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. A brand that you admire or that inspires you.
The National Park Service.
Favorite app on your phone.
United.
I fly a lot of United. It's the best airline app, I think. Last
Mhm.
website other than Amazon that you shopped from.
Fifth.
There you go. Something that you're not good at, but wish that you were.
Whistling.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about.
Delivering good.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Patience.
Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
A piece of art I bought online 5 years ago.
Okay. Where can people reach out to you on social media, Kim, if they would like to?
LinkedIn is the best place to do it.
Okay, great. It was great to see you. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on your new role. We'll look for great things coming from you.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was great to spend some time with you.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Kim Miller for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, we recorded this show at the end of March 2025, and the current economic situation is a bit murky. So we all need to be thinking about how we might pivot our priorities. As Kim mentioned, the consumer sentiment is low while the unemployment rate continues to be low, but the customer's nervous. They're concerned about spending, so think about what changes, if any, you'll make to continue your business forward. And number 2, empathy is a word that we've spoken about often on this show. In the conversation with Kim, she used it in the context of her being the digital person on a team within a multi-channel retailer. As digital was becoming a more significant piece of the brand, it was incumbent upon her to have empathy for the store teams that might have felt like they were being impacted by the newer and growing channel. I also like to remind us all about empathy for those people that might be looking for a new role. If someone reaches out for help, do the best that you can to take a few minutes and lend a helping hand where you can. And number 3, focus on the customer, not the channel in which the transaction is made. We've come a long way in this regard, but still, there are times when I see brands falling backwards. We're here to serve the customer, let them shop where and when they want, and try to give them the same quality experience regardless of where that might be. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.